Hi guys, I'm Danny, and I started a Sunday gym because I've noticed lately that people tend to go to colleges and universities without actually knowing why they're there. Afterwards, starting jobs that are unfulfilling. So I'm interviewing different professionals to see what they have to say and share their knowledge and experience with you. I hope you enjoy it. I think it's ready. Think good. Right on, Don. Thank you for being with me. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
All is well, thank you. The program will be focused on three main questions. What do you do for a living? How did you get there? And how did you know that this was the way to go? So, that is what you do for a living, Don.
Well, I'll tackle on one. So I'm an author novelist, and I have been writing books for I guess I started about 20 years ago, 2004. I've got about 25 published books out right now. Um, and let's see, I hit number one status in being a best-selling author in 2014. So
Amazing.
I've had four bestsellers since then. So once you kind of make this, I mean, I'm not saying this to make it I'm sure not trying to be braggadocious, but I'm just saying once you get to a certain once you get bestseller status, Amazon promotes you a lot more, you know what I mean? And because they want to sell books, that's obviously what they
Yeah.
like. And they give you all kinds of clues and hints and titles and all that kind of stuff. And I've won a few awards, maybe like three or four. I think we won three or four awards last year for fiction. Um, and I really enjoy it. My academic background is Danny. I'm an economist by training, so
Nice.
I spent 30 some years traveling the world telling people how to fix their economies. I don't
Yeah,
really
I
do.
was about to ask you that. Were you like walking on the street one day in 2004 and you'll be like, let me be a best-selling author? Or did something else led to it?
I would say it was boredom that led to it. I kind of
That,
got to
that
the
must
top.
that means that you're a pretty good economist. Because
I,
that's when you get bored.
yeah, I was, as my wife would say, we were walking, I was doing a lot of traveling all over the world, doing a lot of keynote speeches. And I'm not saying this to diss my fellow brothers in the economics business, but most of them, they kind of talk like this, and the economy's going to be kind of flat next quarter. And you can expect some trepidity in the situation, and that's not going to get you any gigs.
I know.
You got to be
I actually
animated. You
am
got
an
to be
accountant and a financial analyst by education and by trade. So I know.
you picked one of the dismal sciences too, just like me. So that's what we call them, the dismal sciences: accounting, economics, all that, statistics. So I was doing the kind of the world tour circuit. I've been all over the world, 60 plus countries. I've helped a lot of I mean, I've given advice to a lot of governments and a lot of cities and nations and presidents and all kinds of stuff. And I kind of hit the top of my game. And I got the vast majority of all the speaking gigs that were to be had for money. You know what I mean? It's a paying gig, as you know. So I was walking across this golf course with my wife after a keynote one night at a in San Diego, California, and I said, I I just don't want to do it anymore. I said, there's no, I know what the next 20 years is. I know what the next 20 or 30 years is probably going to bring. So my message is going to be really similar for 20 or 30 more years. I mean, because I don't see anything systemically changing. And you get really tired, Denny, of going to places and have to give them bad news. I mean,
Yeah.
literally, you have to get up and say, I'm really sorry, but you're not going to make it. You're going to get waxed. I mean, this is what's going to happen. I mean, and it's really uncomfortable to be able to read the tea leaves really quick. You get to where you feel like you're some soothsayer or something, right? So I just kind of lost the luster in it. I have a lot of wonderful lifelong friends from my time in economic development. I enjoyed it. It's a phenomenal career, and phenomenal people that work hard to help people have jobs and make a decent living and have a living wage. And I admire them. And I really felt like we were doing the Lord's work, you know? But I got tired of it and I wanted fun and passion in my life. So I just said, I'm gonna do something different. And at that time I was making really good money. You imagine we have a lifestyle that would match that, right?
Yeah,
And
I know.
And the vast majority of everybody, all they could think about was how are you gonna take care of yourself? You know, how are you going to pay for things? And I said, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just gonna try. I mean, I'm gonna go out there and swing for the bleachers, right? So it took me a conference in St. Pete, Florida, where I was sitting on the veranda looking at the moon, smoking a cigar, which you'll find as a lot of my life is having drinks and smoking cigars with people and talking about philosophy. So I said to one of my really good friends, Jimmy Heiser, I said, we were sitting out there and I said, I think I'm going to write some books and just go out there and try to write some books. And he goes, dude, you're going to walk away from all this? I said, yeah. He goes, well, what if you don't succeed? I go, start over at something else, but I don't want to do this anymore. And I just made a decision just to try. And my first book was a bestseller. It was kind of the inside expose on how this whole industry works with money and governments and how they give out money and who helps them make those decisions and how you influence those decisions. And it sold really well. And that got me a deal with Random House. And I just kept writing. And my second book was a total flop, just so you know. It sold 26 copies.
It happens.
26
But give me
copies.
the link I'm gonna put the link in the description below. Maybe there can be a 2070. You never know.
I actually really liked that book. It was called Who Moved My Smokestack. It was all about the globalization of the world economy and why jobs are leaving and going all over the place. And it's basically about automation, and automation kills more jobs than anything else. And I thought it was a really good book, but it didn't resonate well with the general public. And so I almost quit writing at that point. I just said, okay, obviously my first one was a one-hit wonder. I'm now a one-hit wonder, like a guy that writes songs. But I decided to stay with it, and I wrote, more books, obviously. And I really didn't enjoy the nonfiction stuff. It just wasn't. I mean, that's doing predictions and stuff is and it was helping me to become a public speaker. So I probably did about 3,000 speeches around the country and the world. And usually I backed up those speeches with some kind of a book, and you could buy it at the place. And then I decided I wanted to do fiction because fiction I can just make shit up. I mean,
Yeah.
excuse my French. I can
No.
I can make stuff up, and I'd heard so many great stories traveling around the world. People always, all my stories come from other people. They tell me stuff, and then that leads me to germinate a story, and I write a story. And then I really enjoy writing fiction. I don't think I'll ever do anything different than that now. I really have found my niche, I would say, in life. And
Not
that's
to
me.
mention, it's always interesting. Fiction is because I understand economics. I would read those books because it's part of my job, part of my everyday. So definitely I'd read them.
Well, I
Uh,
mean,
but fiction is something that has a bit of a mysticism in it or around it.
well,
Like,
it's a way, I have a lot of friends today that are authors, right? When I know a lot of authors all over the world, and a lot of really successful authors. And the resonating story that I got, I hit number one in nonfiction, so I kind of conquered that mountain. And when I got to number one and I saw how many books I sold, which was a fair number. I mean, way over, like, let's say probably 30 some thousand books in the first few months. And so that's a bestseller fiction thing. And I saw how many books you could sell writing nonfiction. And then I started hanging out with some of these nonfiction writers, and they sell that many in a month every month. And I'm like, holy cow, these people are making 10 times what I'm making.
yeah.
And I was like, hey, this is still a money game. And it's way more fun to write fiction than nonfiction. I don't have to cite sources. I don't have to do any of that, Denny.
And you have that flexibility that otherwise you won't have.
Yeah.
You said something interesting. I'd like to pick your brain on it. I gave that example a while ago. You said about jobs moving overseas and something like that. And this is an example that I'm giving often. And maybe I'm wrong, all right? Because I have this thing like every single guest of mine is way wiser than I am. So please correct me when I'm wrong, all right?
Well, you got your first one that didn't make it.
No, don't worry about it. I didn't hit him yet. So this is the example I'm giving. You know those iconic red phone booths in London?
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. I think they have installed them at the end of the Victorian era, after
Uh,
Alexander Bell designed the whole structure and
right.
everything. And the mailman back then broke them all. because they were afraid that they'd be out of a job. Now, that was about 150, 60 years ago.
Yeah.
And, and I'm just, it's I don't have the numbers in front of me. I'm just saying it from what I remember. But at the end of the Victorian era, when they installed those phone booths, they broke them all because they were afraid that they'd be out of a job when people have. Now, I personally, I've never been in Great Britain. I don't know if I'm ever going to visit, but I'm almost 100% certain that right now, if I go there, I'll be able to get a job as a mailman. I'm just saying that maybe I will. So why would people be troubled? I don't want to say afraid, but why would people be troubled if they quote unquote lose their job? Because I've lost of my job a few times. But I believe that if you remain calm, if you just observe what's around you, if you don't panic, and if you are aware of your surroundings, your worth and your value, you'd be able to get a new job because I'm almost certain that it's like that in the United States, but here in Europe, in the EU, it's next to impossible to be jobless if you're actually looking for a job. So if you want one, you get one. So why do you think people are troubled by this? And again, tell me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right. In the US, I can speak to it pretty much. It's pretty much a worldwide issue, but it's a very prominent here in the US is automation scares people because a lot of our society, let's say people my age and maybe a little younger, they're not as tech savvy as they probably need to be to keep up with the jobs. And jobs are coming more and more tech savvy, and people just don't want to go. I believe firmly in continuous learning. Okay,
As it
if
should be.
if you don't try to keep up with the times and keep up with the skill sets that are necessary to be, proficient, then you're going to fall behind and lag. And what happens in the US is people get really lazy, I think, and we've gotten really lazy about keeping up with skill sets. And the old skill sets change every decade at a minimum, okay? Uh,
Yeah.
and and what happens is you become more and more underemployed because they can use a machine for something that they used to use you for, and it's a lot less, and it never takes a break. It never goes on sick leave. It never has, family leave, any of that kind of stuff. And so it's their fear of relearning a new skill that's maybe different than they're used to. It's the fear of adaptation. It's the fear. And I won't say it's all laziness, but some of it is. Some
Yeah.
of it is I'm tired, I just don't want to learn anymore. Well, when you stop learning, you die. You will become irrelevant in this society as fast as it moves if you stop learning. I know that for a fact with the internet and everything else we've had to keep up. Um, and a lot of people just don't want to do it, Denny. They don't want to keep up with the time. I mean, I try really hard to keep up with tech. It's hard. I won't say that it's not hard,
But
but
it's worth it.
you have to. I mean, look, I'm doing podcasting. 5 years ago, I didn't know what a podcast was. Okay, now my publicist, she says, I want you to focus on a podcast tour. I don't want you to focus on radio or TV. I want you to focus on podcasting because they have way more subscribers. You hit people that are actually interested in your topic. They want to listen to you. They don't just, you don't just hope to catch somebody. If they listen to your podcast, it's because they like what you do and how you do it. So it's very focused, and I'm a big believer in what you're doing. I don't personally want to do my own podcast. I'd rather be on shows like yours because it's not something that I have. I'm just so busy writing and editing, and now we have two or three books that are being made into movies, and so I'm dealing with people in Hollywood, and it's a my gig. What I do is a full-time thing, but I have to keep my skill sets up. I still have to do things. Um, I have to adapt. My kids are very technologically savvy. When I say kids, they're both of them are grown up, but I mean they're very tech
Yeah.
savvy, and they're both around the tech industries and tech businesses. And they tease me all the time that I'm so far behind, in times and all this stuff. And I remind them that I was on the cutting, bleeding edge of the internet. I was there when it came out, and I was
I've
part of
heard
that.
that argument from my father.
Yeah, I mean, I was, when I go to some of these conferences and they introduce me, it's kind of funny. My kids think it's hilarious. They'll say he's a rogue thinker. and or he's a rogue, innovator and a maverick thinker and a pioneer of the internet. And they start laughing and they say that kind of stuff. And I go, well, it's true. I mean, back then I was your age and I was like, hey, you know what? This is really cool. And I was into it. And I was there when everybody was setting up their companies, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs. I mean, I ran into all these guys. I mean, we ran in those circles and, now we're all old. But tech is still there and it's moving and changing the world. But the book industry, no different. I mean, we have digital platforms now. We can publish with the push of a button. You have Amazon pretty much taking over the world when it comes to marketplace. They set the tone on what, I mean, as an author, whether you like it or not, you have to adhere to what Amazon tells you, or else they won't sell your book, and that means you're walking away from 90% market share. I mean, you can't have Amazon sideways with you because they're the
Yeah,
big
it's
gorilla.
just the way of the world right now.
Yeah, yeah, they're the big gorilla in the room, whether we like it or not. I mean, and that's tech. That's all. They're all tech driven.
Your story reminds me of something my father told me long, long time ago. Now, his father, my grandfather, his father died about 2 years before I was born. And his father told my father, whatever you do, just have this as a side skill. Learn how to fix TVs because everybody has a
Do.
TV in their home, right?
And they
So,
still do.
yeah, but when was the last time you sent your TV for repair? Because I'm 33. Then I don't remember ever sending a TV in a repair. Like if you buy it, it works for 5, 7, 10 years, and you throw it away and you get a new one, and that's it. And whether this is right or wrong, I'm not even going to go there. But it is what it. When was the last time you sent your phone for? Maybe your phone because with those displays now you drop it, but it's not like it was before. So the world that was way back doesn't exist anymore.
No.
And that kind of leads me to the third question, because yeah, okay, you were pretty remarkable at your field, economics, and you decided to move to writing books, but you had so much experience, so much contacts. You've been you are well traveled. You've seen a lot, and you know a lot. Now you could have picked like basically any other career, but you decided to go with this one. How did you decide to go with this one? The reason I'm asking is because I'm sure that's in the US as well, and we have it here in the U. We have those folk that just go to colleges, universities, or get some kind of a job that's obviously not for them, but it like they pick it up, and you're going to end up as a miserable person if you do something that's not for you. But you actually, because you spend a lot of time in the economic field, so you knew it was for you. And about 20 years ago, you decided to go with writing, and you knew that this was for you as well. How did you know that this was for you? Was that a gut feeling? Were you influenced by someone? What happened?
Um, Denny, I travel because I travel a lot, I read a lot. Okay. So I read a lot of books on the planes. I would read books and they took me away to different worlds and I really enjoyed that. And I decided I wanted to do something fun. I wasn't sure how to do it. I wasn't sure what I would do. So obviously my very first book was about what I did for a living. I mean, I was at the top of my game and a lot of people wanted to pick my brain. So I said, maybe they'll want to read how I come to the conclusion of how I make my decisions, right? This is how I make my predictions. This is how I make my conclusions. These are the people that I talk to learn. And I interviewed about 55 of the most prominent people in my industry worldwide. Everybody said that they wouldn't be willing that, when I first told everybody that I was going to do this, everybody said, they won't talk. They're not going to, nobody wants to tell you what's in the soup, right? And I said, but what I found was we're all friends and they'd talk to me. I mean, they would talk to me. They might not talk to people that are interviewing them traditionally, but they would talk to
Yeah.
their buddy. I was in, I mean, absolutely, I was an insider. I won't say that I wasn't an insider. I was an insider. I was on all the right boards. I was in the right positions. I was on the media enough that people knew who I was. I was a talking head on all your news shows and all that kind of stuff. So I just decided I wanted to do something fun, and telling stories is something I always enjoyed. I used parables and stories in all my examples, even in economics and economic development. I use those stories. So I decided storytelling was kind of what I wanted to do. I didn't know if I could do it very well, but I wanted to learn, and I've had to continuously learn. I have a team around me. Obviously, it's not a solo gig. I have an infrastructure of people that help me write, not write, but they help me edit the books, and they help me clean them up and polish them and do all the different edits that you have to do, and then the illustrations and covers. And I mean, I have a team of people that help me, probably about 10 to 12 people that help me produce books. I write them, and then they help me make them marketable and commercially viable. But I decided it was pretty much a gut. I just went with my gut and said, let's do something fun, dude. You're 40 years old, and yeah, what are you going to do with your life? And if you don't have some fun, I mean, what use is there having all this money if you can't do something fun? And it was a big risk. I won't tell you that it wasn't a big risk. And I failed a lot. I've failed a lot. The whole 20 years, I've failed a lot. You can't be afraid of failure. People always think, that this is an easy gig, that you just go write this book and it's, but I
Only
made,
people that don't know anything about that business thinks it's an easy gig. Like
well,
every single person who's somewhat familiar with and I'm not even talking about book writing. I am familiar with book writing because I interviewed a few people, and now that I know a lot of them personally. But I can guarantee you, like acting, writing, direct, only people that have absolutely no idea about this business think it's in this business. It's
yeah, I know you're right, but it is hard. It's hard, and there's a lot of failure to it, and there's a lot of
And
people.
that's why it's almost impossible to do it if your heart's not in it. Like it's next to impossible to do it only for the money. It is profitable,
Yeah, you
but
can't set out to do it for the money. There's
say
no
again,
way.
please.
You can't do it for the money. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to do it for the passion, and you're right. It's absolutely a
Uh,
passion-driven thing.
I love talking to others because you guys are always like it's like an instinct, and you don't even do it on purpose, but you're always looking for inspiration. And I love that you're doing fiction now, and I wanted to ask you, how much do you know about Gobekli Tepe?
What? Tell me that
Yeah,
again.
I expected that. Gobekli Tepe.
Nothing.
Okay, great. I'm going to send you a Wikipedia link that's accessible
Oh,
for everybody. I
okay.
think it will be an inspiration because
I
it's
love that. I love
remarkable,
that. I
and
get it from
it's a
everybody.
site that they discovered recently. It's difficult to calculate, but it's either 12 or 15,000 years old.
Oh my
And
God.
yeah, and it was listed as the last place before the decline of civilization.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was like the last place they
I would
had
love
there.
to. I'd love to look at that. I mean, I
I
made
I just
I made this transition, and it was very scary, Denny. I have to tell you. Um, the uh the choice was go with something everybody criticized me for doing it, for walking away from the money, to be honest with you. And now, 20 years later, it's proven to be a really good decision for me. Now everybody says, I always knew you would do it. Well, I don't remember them thinking that.
yeah.
I don't remember anybody having my back. I mean, a few of my friends would smile and encourage me and say, hey, I hope it works, whatever. But it's a
Yeah,
tough choice. I think you have to make the choice and just go for it. And I've had probably 4 or 5 life-changing careers where I made a decision to do something different. I was an entrepreneur early on in my life, and it didn't work so well. So you ask how I made this decision. Part of it was the fact that every time I don't come from money. My family was very, very middle class, or not lower middle class. We working class family here in the US. My mom and dad worked really hard. Both of them worked, uh, blue collar. And so I didn't have inheritance to fall back on. I didn't have wealth in my family bloodline. So every time I would come up with a really great idea, Denny, I had to have other people involved to have their money. I had to attract money.
yeah,
And when you have to depend on other people for money, it just leads, it gives the odds of failure are much higher. So I looked at the reasons things didn't work for me, and it was always because somebody else didn't perform. I performed, but nobody else ever performed. So I wanted to choose a career, Denny, where I controlled the outcome, and it was all dependent on Don Holbrook. If Don Holbrook wrote a book and he promoted it and did what he was supposed to do, maybe it doesn't sell, but it gets done and it's available to be bought. And I don't have to worry about whether or not I can raise enough capital and all those kind of things. So I picked this because it was something I enjoyed telling stories. Secondly, something I could self-fund myself. I mean, yeah, it was a big risk to spend the money the first time. And it has been a continuous investment. But the issue is that I chose it because I could afford to self-fund it, and I didn't have to depend on other people for money. And and that's one of the reasons that I thought writing books was good for me, because I could afford to do all this without anybody else being at risk except
And you
me.
also carry yourself in a different way when you have that flexibility and that self-sustainability, I guess.
Yes, you do. And I enjoy. I mean, I don't know if I told you. I'll send you a link to this, but this is the thing wants to go out on me. This is the
Okay.
latest book. Let's see if I can get it to.
I will put it in the Ghost of the Rio de Janeiro. Ah, Rio
Rio Grande.
Grande. Ghost of Rio
Ghost
Grande.
It's the true story of what happened down on the border. Maybe I put it behind my head. It'll show. Look at that. It shows up behind my head. Look at that. My thing wants to screen it out. Anyways, Ghost of the Rio Grande is all my
Rio
books.
Grande was at the southern side of the United States, from what I remember, but I'm not certain.
Mexico and the U.S. are divided by that river.
Okay.
So this is the real story of what happened just before World War One on the border with a real person that actually existed, Fabriciano Garcia. My partner in this book is Dr. Garcia, Beto Garcia, Dr. Gilberto, or he goes by Beto Garcia. I call him Dr. G. It's his real family story, and
Nice.
he and I met, and I really loved the story. And we, came up. We took his great grandfather's story and made it into this, but it's actually based on real events. Now, his grandfather wasn't at all those events, but I kind of put him into it so that people would learn about history that a lot of us here in the US don't learn all the historical things that really were going on before World War One. So it's a really uncovered era of our history. So I wanted to make a story that pulled you in. So he, of course, I nicknamed him the Tejano Forrest Gump because he gets to meet all the most prominent people of the time. Winston Churchill, General Pershing, Pancho Villa. They're all in this book. I mean, this, and it's about, and all the events in the book really happened. I just used his grandfather to be there to be a catalyst to tell that story.
Nice. You basically took the formula of the Assassin's Creed games.
Absolutely. My youngest son just said that to me, that dad, you took the same formula as Assassin's Creed. And I said, yeah, it
Yeah,
doesn't
and you can never go wrong with that formula. It's just that
it
simple
works.
and it's brilliant.
It works. And so I really have enjoyed it. So all my fiction books, if you look at the ones that are coming out in the future, I have coming down the pike, and the ones that are out are all based on real events. And then I fictionalize them to let you see what could have happened or what might have been going on that wasn't reported in history. And it's the same way in Ghost of the Rio Grande. It's a Western. Cars and horses were in a convergence to where they were competing with each other, and cars were just coming onto the scene. We were getting ready to we were dealing with the Great War in Europe, and the Americans were, slow to get in. As you know, they came in late in 1917. So this is the story of how the Germans tried to keep the Americans out of the war. His great grandfather, got caught in the middle of the whole thing, got wrongly accused by the Texas Rangers of murder when it was really self-defense. He had to go on the run for 5 years and stay away from his family because he was a wanted man. He was one of the most wanted men in South Texas because of this. The Texas Rangers back then were not who they are today. They were a bunch of thugs, and they were weaponized by the governor for the white political landowners of the
Almost
North.
every single ranger, police officer, or quote unquote government police thing was either a former thug or retired thug.
Yeah,
It was
and
just how the world is. And this isn't an insult. It's just
oh,
how, like I read it, I don't remember for which year, but it was either before or around the Industrial Revolution in Australia.
Oh,
100% of the police department was made of former convicts. And I had a niece, she's 14 now. She's like, can you believe that? Like, well, the whole country was kind of like made of that.
yeah.
Because
Well, that's where they
that
sent
was
them.
British politics. That's where they send them.
Yeah, I mean, I have a ton of friends in Australia. I love it down there.
Oh yeah, sure. But I'm just
Yeah.
highlighting a thing that happened 200 years ago. I'm not saying the
I,
criminals now.
I love to tease them all that they all have criminal background histories because that was a penal
Yeah,
colony. It was a penal
savage.
colony. Yeah,
I
but you
mean,
know it's funny because people don't realize that the Texas Rangers at that time wrongfully hung and killed uh probably over 1,000 Tejano innocent people that were just, you know, landowners and farmers because they wanted to take their land through a land grab that the white ranchers wanted because they wanted the oil under the land. That Black Texas was an oil boom. And then remember, cars are just coming onto the scene. Texas has all this oil under its land. And these people weren't doing it for the cattle. That's what everybody thought. They were doing it for the oil. Because
true, but that wasn't only there. That was everywhere. I'm
yeah, but
I'm not I'm
Texas,
not saying it's okay. I'm highlighting the
oh,
fact that
I
it's not a
know.
local thing, because back then, again, not an insult, just back then,
No, I know, I
people
understand.
weren't that civilized. I'm not saying we're way more civilized than them. We're not, but we're like a little bit more, and you can feel it.
Yeah, it's fun because a lot of people didn't realize that this was going on. Now in Texas, they know their history, okay? So we're doing a movie about Ghost. It's important that we stay true to the era. So I'm trying to make sure that we have, you know, like a real Tejano characters that actually understand what it's like to be a Tejano. We're gonna have people in there that, you know, resonate with that. So like having people like the lady who's going to be our leading lady. We're uh, finalizing a deal with a woman named Vanessa Vasquez, who's from Texas. She's a Tejano actress and very successful in Hollywood. I think she's going to be our leading lady. Is we sent the offer off to her recently, so and she's very supportive of this project. So I'm very hopeful that she'll be in. But it's important to me because she's the perfect person to advocate for our message because she's from there. She
Yeah,
understands Tejano went through and what they go through, and she understands their background and their history. So we want to make sure all of our
she will
stars.
put spirit in that.
Yeah, yeah, she's a great advocate for it. She's all very outspoken, successful Hispanic actress, and I think she's a perfect person for it. You know, we're very hopeful that she'll be on the team. She'll help us get other actors that resonate with the message, but that's important to us that the movie resonates the same message as the book, and so we're going to be careful to make sure we do that right. I'm having a lot of fun. I'm enjoying myself. I've already started on, I've got my next book coming out next year, which is about the Knights Templar. I got that when I was over in your neck of the woods. It's about the
Nice.
mystery
Yeah, I was
of
about to say that.
yeah, the Knights Templar. It's a mystery about them and their unsolved mysteries. And I take people through basically 1,000 years of history of why nobody's ever been able to solve their mysteries. And I kind of take you through what I think the solution, what actually really happened. That doesn't mean it really happened. It's my idea of what I think really happened. But it's a fun book.
It's a magical period, and it is open for speculation, and it's so magical that you can just, throw it out there and it will stick.
It's,
'Cause-
I'll tell you, I started writing that book 14 years ago. I've had a lot of books since then, but I continue to work on that. It's one of my passion projects. It'll come out next year. It's already optioned to be a movie as well. The Ninth Templar is the story of how I think it really went and what they really found. And it's based on a lot of research, a lot of real research, a lot of immersive research, being in your countries, going and looking at these sites, talking to real people, talking to experts. And I think I got it pretty well nailed down, but and it's a modern story, so it's set today, but it goes back and looks back at what's going on.
Once it's out there, I'm gonna ask for you to give me an autograph copy.
Of course, I'll send you one of Ghost as well. I'll get you one off. You send me your address, I'll mail it to you today.
I will. And with that said, then, because of time, Thank you for being with me. I should have you for part 2 and 3 because that was awesome talking to you. And have a nice week ahead.
Hey, Denny, you too, man. Thank you for doing this, and we appreciate what you're doing for authors. This is really great, and I hope everybody that thinks they have a story in them tries to tell it, because every human has a story, and I hope they get out and tell their story.
Absolutely. Thank you again, and have a great one.
Peace.
Guys, I hope this one was useful. Please follow the channel on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, Gap, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Ring the bell and all the good stuff. Have a nice week ahead, and I'll see you next Sunday.